So the rainy season has just begun again, okay, I believe because we've been getting a lot of rains recently, and a lot of you people are asking me in the comment section what succulents to buy right now because I think some of you are starting to buy new succulents again, and I think because it's the rainy season, you can see some growth on your succulents as well. So I want to make this video to show you what type of succulents that I have that are surviving right now, that are looking good, and succulents that I would really recommend if you're buying right now. I would just like to preface this by saying that these are succulents that I have featured before, probably, but they have not been like the most featured plants that I have around, and they're actually some of the newer varieties that I have been trying. So I'm going to switch the camera. We're going to look at the plants that I have gathered here. Okay, so today is kind of a cloudy day, and I want to make this video very quickly because later on it will be noisy and I won't be able to record anything in the greenhouse. So now let's just go on to the plants, and we're going to be talking about them one by one. So I think we'll start with this one. Okay, I might have shown this before. This is a Graptopetalum macdogalii. I've I've had this for quite a while now. When I bought it, it was just like four or five heads, and you can see how much it has grown. Okay, I think I've also managed to sell some of the plants that I have of these. Okay, from the same plant that I bought, I was able to sell some heads already, and you can see that there's just too much right now on this one. What I often do with this plant is I neglect it. I don't often care for it, but it's been planted in potting mix that has more organic materials, which I believe help uh, with the development of the plant, help with the full lush growth that it has. The dogs are getting kind of noisy outside, so yeah. And once I planted them here, they also started producing a lot of these tendrils, a lot of these new heads that are just all over the place. It's kind of like a hanging plant right here with the tendrils. We've also got this stalk that doesn't look like a rosette, but hopefully it will develop, yes. So yeah, I think that's a really nice plant to have. Okay, you can see how much lush it is and how bluish the colors are. So if you want something that's fast growing but doesn't get too wide, then I would recommend this because the rosettes on this one, they don't get too wide, especially if you let them grow like that. But I think you can make the rosettes wider if you cut off these tendrils so that you can focus the growth on a single rosette, and it will grow larger if you just keep cutting off the tendrils. But I will probably not do that. I will just let this ride. Probably if I'm able to propagate some of it, I will make rosettes grow wider. I will cut off the tendrils later on if I manage to propagate a lot of these. Okay, so yeah, that's one. Okay, very easy to care for. Let's go on to the next. I think we'll go on with the ones that I have featured more often. This is a Sedum Burrito that I have transplanted very recently actually. You can probably make a comparison on its older state back when I had been pre-potted it in an organic heavy potting mix with alnus compost. Okay, it was very very skinny. It's not like plump like this. Okay, you can see that this one is really plump. Okay, back when when I repotted it, I think it was really dehydrated. The leaves doesn't get plump like that. What's funny about Sedum Burrito is that if you find the correct potting mix on them and if they manage to establish, their leaves will get fatter. Okay, they will get fatter on the stem. If it's still establishing, you can see those like narrow stems and then long growth, and the leaves are kind of like separate from each other. But once they establish, the leaves get fatter and the spaces between them gets shorter, so they have a much more plump, much more lush look to them once they have more organic materials and they are established. Okay, and I'm really happy with this one. Some of the leaves that we've left on there has started propagating. So yeah, I think that's a good sign that it's a good potting mix because the leaves are propagating. Back when I had a lot more pummies, my leaves, when I put them on top of the soil, they don't root up, they don't produce growth like that. Okay, so I think that this potting mix is really good for the sedum burrito, and I think it's just a staple plant. I think every succulent grower should have a sedum burrito. This is not the cheapest, by the way, in the market, but once you have it, it's really, really nice, really, really adorable, really satisfying once you get what the plant needs. Okay, so you have that. We also have this one. This is my Sedum, oh no, not Sedum, Crassula Crossbees Compact. This is a Jade variety. It's called the compact version because the leaves are way more smaller compared to your normal Jade. I will be showing to you my Jade plant right here. This is an ordinary Jade plant. Really good, really beautiful, especially if you have a large space for it. I really like my Jade plants, okay? Jade plants are really difficult for me in the beginning, but they have grown considerably since. Okay, you can see that. Look at how much growth the jade plant has produced. Really love it right now. Okay, really like how it kind of bounces like that. Okay, and yeah, once you manage to grow it, you will have this really good satisfaction with yourself. Like, finally, I managed to grow my jade plant because a lot of my jade plants before have died and they haven't done this well. So yeah, that's really satisfying thing to have with this plant. And what's good about this one, you can see there. You can see the comparison. This one has smaller leaves. This one has wider leaves. Okay. This one has that bushy look, even if it doesn't get like very large. It has these small leaves. Okay. You can think of it like a bonsai, and they stay small. The leaves stay small. They don't get wider, just like that. Okay. They stay small. They stay compact. So they are very different varieties. So if you manage to find one, the mini jade plant, the Crosby's compact, I would highly recommend it. Let's go on to the next one. I have shown this, I believe, I have shown this one too many times. And this one is featured also in our last video, like when I made a video indoors about succulents, how much neglect succulents can take. So this is an Echeveria. Okay, I forgot the exact name of the variety. Okay, but it's kind of like a Laguna Sanchez or something like that. Okay, this is a very unique Echeveria which has thin leaves and a really nice edge margins to it, which makes it look like the plant is glowing. It has these lighter colored margins. I really adore this plant. I would recommend this for beginners if you're like tired of seeing Echeveria imbricata because you've already had that. So if you want a different variety which kinda has the same properties to it, I would recommend this Echeveria. It has thin leaves, which means you can water it a little bit more often compared to your other Echeverias. Really adore it, especially right now that it's looking like this. I have placed this in a dark place in my house, which is why the leaves have gotten wider. Okay, it opened up a lot more, even though I didn't water it. That is one thing you can do with your succulents. I think we will discuss that technique probably later on. Putting succulents in the dark will sometimes make them produce like different looks to them. So that is one I would highly recommend. Echeveria Simulans Ascension. I've had this for a while. I have another one. They're both looking great, looking fantastic. I've tried selling them, but nobody will buy. Nobody will buy them. Okay, so yeah, I will not be selling them anymore. You might want to just look for the plant if you're buying. Okay, Echeveria Simulans Ascension. Kinda rare, not really easy to look for, but they're really satisfying once you have it. What else do we have here? I think we'll go with this one. This is Graptopetalum, Mrs. Richards. Yes, Mrs. Richards. I've had this for a while. It had dried up a lot of its leaves. Okay, let's just move this aside first. We'll talk about that later. You can see here on the sides it has dried up a lot of its leaves. Okay, but it has also managed to produce a lot of growth. So I really like this. Mrs. Richards, it's kind of a very easily dried up succulent. It's not very succulent, if you know what I mean. Okay, it's not really that thick plant. Okay, it has kind of a thin leaf shape to it, and it has some of that like mutated or variegation to it. Very minimal, not as pronounced as your other variegated succulents, but it has some variation to the leaves. Kind of looks like a ghost plant from afar, but it behaves differently. It is Mrs. Richards. So you might also want to be careful when buying this one because sometimes it will be named Purple Delight, or a Purple Delight will sometimes be named Mrs. Richards. So yeah, those are very different, though I would recommend them both. I have a Purple Delight right here just so that we can make a comparison. Where is my Purple Delight? Here it is. And the Purple Delight is sometimes like confused with the Super Bomb, though they are different. Okay, look at that. Purple Delight, Mrs. Richards. Okay, Purple Delight, Mrs. Richards. If you're looking for a Super Bomb, this is a Super Bomb. Okay, I have them resting here because they've been recently watered. So that is a Super Bum, Purple Delight, and Mrs. Richards. Now I would recommend all of them. Okay, I would recommend you buy all of them, but we're only featuring this one because that one I haven't been showing a lot, but I've been getting a lot of success with this one. So Mrs. Richards, really really adorable. It is a clumping succulent. If you manage to grow it successfully, it will produce clumps for you. Really really easy. Okay, the next one. Okay, let's just talk about this one because I've already moved it. You've already seen it. This is the Kalanchoe Black Tie. Okay, really, really adorable Kalanchoe. This has pronounced edges compared to your ordinary tomentosa. Sometimes the tomentosa will lose its dark colored edges, but the black tie kind of retains it. Okay, I think I bought this like as something else, chocolate soldier, but I think it's a black tie. Okay, really, really adorable, and this one has stayed consistently alive for me. Hasn't grown a lot, but I will probably repot it so that it can grow a lot more. And probably I haven't added enough organic materials. You can see there's a lot of pumice in there, which is why it's not growing. But even though calanchos like grow like that, if you plant them in very little organic materials, they will still survive. Calanchos are very like resilient like that. Okay, and even if you add more organic materials, they will also grow, they will thrive. So yeah, they're just not the fastest growers, I believe. Okay, and they're kind of picky when it comes to watering. Sometimes a calancho will die, will rot because of overwatering. So you might also want to be careful with that. But I think it's also very very adorable. It has that fuzzy leaves that you can touch. So yeah, and I think it's one of those other staple plants that you should have if you're collecting succulents. So yeah, we have that. The next one is a Graptoveria. This is a Margaret repin, and I really really like this plant. Kind of reminds me of Ben Buddies, but it is a Graptopetalum crossed with an Echeveria. You can see the nice variation on the leaves, okay, with its light colored edges. Really really adorable and very compact as well compared with your other Graptoveria varieties, which can get wide, which can get unruly. This one is very well behaved. It's very compact, which is why it looks like a Ben Buddies. And even though I neglect it, and even though it doesn't have a lot of organic materials, okay, probably it has some organic materials. They just settled at the bottom. But this one is really, really behaved. I really like the look of it. Kind of reminds you of the Onslow as well. I think this is the Onslow. Okay. So yeah, it has that same shape to it, but they're very different. This one, because it's a Graptoveria hybrid, it has a lot more heft to the leaves, a lot more weight, kind of much thicker. Okay, because of its Graptopetalum parentage. So yeah, really really adorable one. It's not very unruly. It doesn't like react very much if you neglect it. It holds onto its leaves. Though this one is actually kind of thirsty right now. Okay, yeah, but I will water it and it will just plump back up again. It hasn't grown a lot since I planted it because it doesn't have a lot of organic materials. You can see on the potting mix. So yeah, I will probably repot this later on. And we will see more growth on that. Graptoveria Margaret Repin. Okay, so I just realized we have a lot to discuss. Okay, but let's push on. Okay, I think yeah, I think that you're already excited for those ones, but yeah, I think we'll just go with this one first. This is my Echeveria Pistachio. I bought this as a pistachio, though I haven't seen any reference online for an Echeveria Pistachio, but I really really like how it had grown. It had managed to like produce different sets of leaves. When I planted it, I think this is the original leaves that it had, and then the plant started producing these carunculated leaves, and after a while it had already reverted to its kind of like a normal looking leaves. So these are already like three sets of growth ever since I planted it, and I don't think I've had this for a year. It hasn't really gotten that long yet. So I really really like this plant. It's a fast grower. You can see how much growth it has. Okay, really really nice. I think it already begs to be repotted because it's already really large, and I really really like the shape of it. If you manage to find one that is named pistachio, you can expect it to grow really really large. Okay, it's not one of those compact succulents. So yeah, I would highly recommend it if you have a large space in your area, and I think if you got more sun, you will have these more carunculated leaves. And I think if you don't add too much organic materials, because back then I think it had more pumice, and which is why it helped stress the plant, so it produced carunculated leaves. But now that it has more organic materials, the leaves are not stressed, so they're looking normal. So that is one good Echeveria that you might want to add to your collection. Now let's go on to the next. This is a Cotyledon Popularis, I think. Okay, this one has narrow leaves and very white farina. You can see the farina on that one, really, really striking, really adorable. And I actually wondered why this one looks like it, looks like that. I have a cotyledon, another cotyledon here. This is Cotyledon pendens. This one had long stems. I cut off the bottom stems, I cut off the roots, and yeah, it managed to stay alive. So yeah, I really, really adore these ones. Okay, but I'm hoping to get more farina on my Cotyledon pendens, just like with this one. And I'm wondering why this one has a lot of farina. I think it's just how the plant is growing. Okay, I remembered it's Cotyledon flaganii. Okay, or something like that. Really, really adorable if you look at the new growth. Okay, and once it rubs off, once the farina rubs off, you can see that the leaves have a nice reddish margin at the tips. Really, really adorable. Okay, so that is one good looking cotyledon. I think this is one that I will also repot later on. Probably we will make it like a hanging plant so that it can like hang down. This one is already hanging down. I looked at it a while back and I thought that this one is getting rotten because it's bending downwards, but I think that's just how the plant likes to grow, grows up and then goes down once it manages to get too long. So I think it would be really nice, don't you think, if we hang this up like a hanging plant? Okay, I think that we can still make space for it in our hanging plant location because my hanging plants are already taking up the space. You can see this one. I really can't get the camera to focus. Okay, but you can see that my finger. That is the farina of the plant. Okay, let me just rub at the bottom. Okay, you can see that it's chalk-like. Really, really nice thick farina on that one. So yeah, I think if you're looking for the more unpopular, like uncommon, or kind of a rare looking succulent, I would highly recommend this. And it also behaves like a Kalanchoe. It's not very sensitive. Okay, you can water it very frequently. If you neglect it though, just like with this one, you can see that the leaves kind of get wrinkled. There are some dropped leaves here, really sad. I just noticed it right now. But because it's very different from your other succulents, it will not propagate via leaf. Okay, you can only propagate it by stem cuttings. And also, cotyledons are poisonous. So please pardon me for the noisy dogs outside. So these ones are very poisonous. You don't want to eat them. Okay, or if you have pets, don't put them anywhere near your pets. So yeah, that is one another new variety of succulent. Okay, let's go on to the next. This one I've already featured it, but I think I stopped featuring it for a while. But I wanted to show it again. Okay, this is a ice plant. Okay, this ice plant I've had this for a while. Let's just forget about this ugly looking one. Okay, one of our viewers recently like talked to me on the chats about their ice plant, and they told me that they watched one of my videos where I said that ice plants need more water, so they water their ice plants more, and it plumped back up and it grown a lot. Okay, and I wanted to show my ice plant in comparison. This is a new stem, I think. Okay, this is a new stem that the plant has grown. So if you're buying an ice plant, it looks like this. That is just a normal look of an ice plant. If you're buying an ice plant and it looks like this, okay, this is another normal look for the ice plant. Though I would say this is an etiolated ice plant. This one had gotten more sun. Okay, I think. Okay, so they just grow on their own. Okay, but they really, really look adorable once you manage to grow them. They have these plump leaves. They don't have farina, okay, but the leaves are kind of has a matte feel to it. It isn't very shiny. Okay, you can probably get your ice plant to be shiny, but mine isn't so shiny, and I really, really like the look of it. Okay, it has some edges to it, some variation on the edges. Okay, like you can see some variation on that, which makes it looks like it's glowing. And I really, really adore this plant. Okay, you can get dried up leaves like this one if you neglect it for a very long time. But if your ice plant produces like wrinkling on the leaves, you just have to water it. It will plump back up again. Okay, and this one will grow to be a hanging plant. I haven't featured this one because I planted it in a pumice heavy potting mix, so it hasn't retained the water. It hasn't grown so much, but I think this one has grown a lot more because I planted it with more organic materials. Though I would just make sure, I would just recommend it to you that if you're planting in more organic materials, don't water as often because the organic materials will retain more of the water. Okay, so you might have to water only if the potting mix is dry. Okay, so that is one that I would recommend. Though I would say that I've had more organic materials on that compared with my other succulent potting mixes because the ice plant gets very thirsty very quickly. So yeah, if you're planting other succulents, don't use this too much organic materials, I believe. I only use that for my ice plant. Okay, now we're down to our last four succulents. Okay, I hope this video didn't get too long. Okay, this is my Echeveria Madiba. I've wanted a Madiba for a very long time. Okay, I think it's one of those rarer succulents when you started out growing succulents like back in 2019. Okay, if you started succulents back then, you might already have seen this one. Always featured on the rich bloggers videos. Okay, they have this Madiba that had grown really large and has gotten really curly. And I would say that the Madiba is very easy to grow. And now, currently at the state of the market, Madibas are also very, very inexpensive, very cheap. You can already find a lot of Madibas just going around, even in the more common sellers. Yeah, that is one nice Echeveria to have. This one had gotten compact in my place, okay, because I think I had more pumice on it, but it's still alive. So yeah, I think I will replace the potting mix with more organic materials and the leaves will get wider and larger. I think leaf, these leaf, these are all new, and this is the original leaves that it had when I bought it. And back then, the rosette isn't even full. That now it's getting into a more full rosette look. Okay, so we have that. Cabera Madiba, highly recommended. The next one we have is the peach candy. This is, I think, a sedum or Graptopetalum cross. Okay, Graptopetalum hybrid. I really like this one. Kind of reminds you of the Marpin, but it has a compact look and smaller leaves. It doesn't get very wide, I believe. And what I noticed with this plant when I did the technique that I said that you should put your succulents in the dark, it had gotten wider. The leaves had gotten longer on the sides, okay, and it managed to produce a much more wider rosette. But back then, when I still like place it in a full sun location for a very long time, it hasn't grown like that. But when I place it like one time in the dark, the leaves started growing wider and the rosette started getting larger. That is, I think, a sign of ventilation, but that told me that the plant is still alive. And yeah, I managed to get a few more centimeters of growth on that plant. Okay, so yeah, that's one thing you can do. You can place your succulents in the dark for about a day or two, and then when you look at them again, you might already notice that they have grown larger. Okay, so that is the peach candy. This is a fat leaf succulent. Not something I would recommend you water often because it's a fat leaf succulent, but it is a very compact one. It stays small. Okay, the leaves and the rosette are very compact. They don't get really, really wide. So that is one thing you might want to add to your collection if you have a small space for it. Okay, if you don't have a lot of space for large succulents. But I would just say that this one also tends to be on the more stem growing succulent. Okay, it's not a very low growing. It will get some height to it if you manage to make it grow. Okay, so yeah, I wouldn't mind getting some stem on my succulents. Okay, I managed to drop a leaf right there. Okay, I wouldn't mind getting some stem on them as long as they are growing. Okay, but yeah, I think I really, really adore this one, the peach candy. I think this is a Graptoveria, Graptopetalum, or yeah, I will probably look it up. But some others sell this as an Echeveria. Okay, the next one is the Graptosedum Mio that I had here. I managed to ruin the farina. Okay, I think this is a Sedum cavatum hybrid. You can see all the new stems that had grown on the plant. Really, really adorable. It is a very fast growing succulent, I think. And I think I added organic materials on the potting mix, okay, which is why it had managed to grow. Okay, this one, I am actually really surprised with the performance of this plant because it had retained its size and it didn't misbehave like other thick leaf succulents. Okay, it had stayed alive. It didn't get rot with me, so I think that it's really, really nice. And the leaves are plump and they have thick farina, and I think they have some kind of like an orangey pinkish color to it that screams like I'm an expensive succulent. Okay, so yeah, but it's not very sensitive in my opinion, in my care that I'm giving it. I've been neglecting it a lot. Okay, so you might not want to mess with this plant very often because if you water it too much, I think it will rot. Okay, but yeah, it stayed alive with me, and yeah, I think that's one thing you can start if you're gonna be growing Korean succulents or expensive imported succulents. You might probably want to start with that one. Very easy. I have my clavatum here. Okay, this one is also recently repotted, and yeah, it managed to grow a lot. You can see probably you can notice some similarities with those two. Okay, this is my sedum clavatum. It had etiolated a lot because I added more organic materials to its potting mix, so it's not as compact as it used to look. But yeah, I still really adore this clavatum. Has that sweet smell to it. The meal, you might be able to smell it, but it's very minimal compared to the clavatum. It doesn't have that much strong scent that the clavatum has. Okay, next one. Finally, we're on to our last one. This is in Echeveria situaensis X, okay, situaensis. I think this is another Gibiflora hybrid, but it's one of those like very expensive, very rare Echeverias that used to be expensive in the market. Okay, kind of like the Madiba. Okay, because of its really unique appearance, doesn't look like your other Echeverias. It has this veiny, wide leaves and doesn't have a compact rosette look. Okay, this one has stayed alive with me. I haven't been putting much effort on this plant. I've been pretty much neglecting it. The leaves are kind of like, I don't know if they're thirsty right now. Okay, I'm really worried about this plant because I have been neglecting it. I'm actually half expecting this to just die, but yeah, it still managed to stay alive. So yeah, I'll probably care for it a little more. If you're one that has a lot of money, has a lot of purchasing power, then I would recommend this one, the Situensis. It stays alive, though it's not a very fast grower. I think because I didn't add organic materials to its potting mix, but it's really unique, and it doesn't have a lot of farina, and you can see that it's really nice. It has a star shaped look to it, kind of like an orchid right now, with the way that the leaves are arranged. Okay, kind of looks like an orchid. So yeah, that is one thing that you can add to your collection, the Citransis. Though I would not say a lot about it because this is a very new purchase for me. I would just say that this one has stayed alive in my care. Okay, we will probably make it grow a lot more later on. Okay, so yeah. So now that it's the rainy season, okay, you might probably find more success with your succulents. I would really say that a lot of my succulents died in during the rainy season, but during the summer season, I mean, like a few weeks ago, a few months ago, a lot of my succulents have been dying. So if you've been looking around while I was moving the camera, you might have seen some of my succulents looking so ugly. Okay, but that's just how it goes. But yeah, if you go with these plants, I think you can get more like life out of them. So yeah, if you really like the plants that I've shown you, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, comment down any topics that you would want us to talk about, and I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.